as being different than us in some type of way, especially if that difference gives them some level of superiority in our minds. Meaning, if we're in a reality and they actually train us to be cold and callous is actually the way to get ahead, and then they're said to be the ones that are the most cold and callous, so they get ahead. Now our whole reality is turned upside down. Now good has become bad, like Michael Jackson. So what happens is that there's another level to this dynamic, which I like to take it step by step, though. Like I'll take you through it. The melanin, let me tell you the secrets to the melanin. Because what happens with the person that's very melanated is a sun burning within, okay? And this sun is very hot. It heats and burns with passion because of a covenant that was made with the entity that is now manifesting out in the reality as Isis, which comes under the form of a female black dog. What happens is that when a person drops into these lower frequencies, there are beings that already agreed that, hey, we're going to hold up the lower frequency. We're going to call that the netherworld. This is going to be basically the foundation, the primordial zone for everything. This is like before you build a building, you build this basement. And then that down there will hold up even to the highest height. So this is also what you have to see with how our dimensions are set up, is that there are things that are down in lower dimensions that if we're not jubilant, and we're not into enlightenment, understanding, meaning that your light burns from within. You don't need an external light to give you some type of gratification and explanation of who you are. So if you don't have that and you go down into these lower frequencies, you get shrouded. So this is what happens in these physical realities, like when we're living now. It's called blinded by the light, where the sun becomes the greatest thing here. Meaning people go out in the morning, they see the sun, and then they see that energy and they see it externally. They don't see it inside of themselves, so that they can, what gets called by the Muslims, genuflect, meaning actually bounce the sun's energy off of you. And so that's what the melanin is capable of doing. It's capable of absorbing the energy and transmuting it. But the energy also is fire. What happened is, if you notice that the ancient traditions heavily relied on fire, while the new traditions relied on ice, i.e. Isis. The fire, of course, is obviously the Arab world. Ar means fire. Ar is also the name for the pentagram. So you're basically looking at a world of combustible, and this is good for you. You're looking at a world of combustible elements that are interacting on each other based upon colors that they keep emulating. And the only thing that they tend to do is attack their exact opposite. Like if going into Photoshop and hitting Control I, you just keep you can see another opposite to any picture. And this is a magnetic thing. This is why I told you, man, this universe, it's got a nighttime to it. So obviously it's not all teddy bears. If you don't figure this out, it can seem to get very dangerous. You have to actually, at certain points, pull yourself out of the entire structure and be like, and observe it from there and see if you're being played. Because that's what I was saying about these tetra fields. Because the gods of this world we've had to track down, they say they've been tracking these beings around universes, the Orion constellation, etc. Just keep up this kind of confusion with everyone of a back and forth of a war god, and each person wants to evoke this war god to fight its battles. So throughout history, that's all you find, and it just keeps changing its name. So the reason why this becomes so important is, if a person uses all their time and all their energy, even in their highest state, I'm not saying that you're doing this, but I'm saying the ones who are the most, say that they're the most devout. They're there every day, they're playing, they're tearing, they do this because this builds up the most energy. These individuals are hinging all of their energy on a being that I just call Tetra. And to understand the energy in its full extent cannot even be compressed within the conversation. But to me, it is a test. The ultimate test that if you came into full realization of self, would you then go back and separate yourself again? And this is something, by the way, we do every day, meaning that once you come into full realization of self, and then you build from there, meaning that you start eliminating all your conflict of ideas, and then you start thinking from that point, you can come up with these glorious ideas. And you can start to come into application of them. But when you allow your mind to be lowered into a continuous conversation or a continuous thought of if another part of the species is really not holding their own or causing a lot of problems, and it's because you're not at the control point. When you're at the control point, meaning that now all these beings are collapsed, you see them only as just chakras that were in confusion with each other until you compress them. Then you actually see everyone's purpose. Now, this, even from an introspection, you've become master of your own world. Like, you only see now everything as something that was actually trying to instruct you into total realization of what you're experiencing. So if you, again, to answer the question, if you want to understand the difference between different colors on the planet, it's about the spectrum. And each person is just like a planet. Each group of people is just like a planet. There's a positive side to them and there's a negative side to them. Also, during certain times as the constellation rolls across, the more higher beings saw Earth and its procession through the zodiac signs as only chapters in Earth's period, meaning that every dog has his day. And then after that, there's always after that. Now, here's the thing. The after that is the whole component with Barack Obama, which I won't get into right now. And, you know, the rest of what they want to, they have to, I don't say want to, but they have to cook up for the American mind right now. The American mind is completely fertile. They've been watching all this Hollywood, all this TV, and obviously these same excuses about the economy are not going to work anymore. YouTube is on fire with every single type of free energy item you can think of. The Bilderbergers is completely exposed. Everyone is up in heyday. Yeah. So everyone thinks, though, that the world is going to end, that this is now Armageddon. They don't understand that that's not how the earth works. Earth's been here for billions of years. When we went through the Iron Age, then there was another age. There was a golden age after that. The golden age, then the industrial age. Industrial age, now we have space age. Space age, where are we going next? Ether. We're going to the ether. Now you'll have one more spatial. And this is why I was saying it wasn't that hard to figure this out. If now we are in this physical reality and we have these couple components, what we're called 3D, what would it be to be the next D, according to their speak? Okay, to have control over the dream body, because that's another spatial. It's another vehicle that you can use to go in a different direction. And when you really want to see how complex this whole creation thing is, you start realizing that you're encapsulated into several of these very complex vehicles that actually have the ability to do massive things. One of them is keep you trapped. If you don't, the thing is that if you don't unlock its potential, it can only expand to the potential of what you can think. And that's where we all have to stay. And that's where also the key comes in with the ceiling, with hatred, also gods saying one's better than the other, etc. It's like a ceiling to where our energy really should be. And so I think it's a major point. But hopefully, brother, that gives you a good answer on that question on why it's playing out this time, that those from the Syrian constellation, etc., are still completely shallow as far as their feelings are concerned, but more inorganic. And why, again, the melanin dominant expresses more connection to the soul and more connection with the root and the family. Now, this also has a lot to do with the elements, that were used in composition through the composition of the entity itself. Meaning that you can obviously tell that there are a lot of mineral or root elements being used. And that's why the Sirius star seems non-melanated too. It's a ghost star, for better lack of words. The Hitler talks more about this and the individuals that were involved in that. But they were able to track their plight there. So you can see what their plight is. Their plight is they're losing life. They're seeking life. Now, I think the greatest individual, when they see a person actually seeks life, they'll try to find a cure for them to survive. And then they'll understand that anytime, like if you get hungry right now, like after a while you start getting hungry, 3 or 4 days move in, you're hungry. What are you going to turn into? Now, what if I told you there are some people here in this world and some entities that vow that they'll never be hungry again? Meaning that they think that God turned his back on them. And this is what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the Jews. Even though they got the whole story confused, it was something that another member of their party calls. There is a group of people building up so much energy at the gate of this world. And I guess we can get into this a little bit. See, if you see the major superpowers, if you want to know what's really going on, you got to go right to the control point. What is this marching around a cube? What is this wailing at a wall with a black cube on the forehead? What does that really mean? Like, can you crack that? And so I cracked into it, and I locked into how religion calls so much accumulation of dark field energy. And that energy comes from people believing that something else is supposed to save them, or something else is supposed to rectify their sins and get them into heaven. And that's why I said the sins of the people darkened the Kaaba. The stone was white but then became black. What they're saying is that people believing that they can lay their sins onto something or lay their responsibilities onto something has become darkened and is accumulating a large amount of dark energy. So I was like, well, what are they doing with it? And then that's when I locked into what the secret societies were really doing with this dark energy that they have channeled throughout. They can channel throughout the earth by their manipulation of the ley lines and their Cleopatra's needles, which function as like acupressure points, moving energy around, bringing objects from the netherworld or Egypt or lower Egypt into other parts of the United States and getting that energy profaning there. I started to see basically them working a large level of ritual and mysticism over the planet. And I said, this is immense. Like, surely if I'm coming into realization of this, then obviously, it says a lot about, maybe I'm supposed to do something about it. See, some people, they would think something different. They would think like, shoot, this is too much for me. I'm out of here. It's too big. I guess I better get on their side. I'm thinking like, look, if I'm supposed to know all this means I'm supposed to do something about this, because we can't do this again. This seems like something that we've done over and over again. And then now when I'm looking at the small details, it always comes about by us thinking that we weren't originally created to function in a unit. Meaning that at some point we're going to have to bring this thing together. I believe it's coming now. I believe that it's actually not even so much as coming now, it's already here. There's a lot of people that I communicate with, and there is a consistent level of information that we are all sharing and coming into at the same time without one person saying that, I found out this. It's all leading to certain things. The other thing about the information, it has no side talk, meaning it's not a God. It doesn't need any rectification and bowing down and all that. It's like, here's the truth, do what you do. It's boiling down to your vehicle. Meaning there's a consistent level of information that keeps coming across from our sources that are saying, this is what it is. It's still about you. Like, you have to see what you do. You have to see what you take in. You have to understand how your heart's pushing out. Sometimes the first battle has something to do with your courage, but that means definitely the second battle is going to have something to do with how well you can love. That each of your chakra systems are oscillating in war with each other, planet-sized wars. You see fallout and everything, but you can bring that in balance within, and then it starts to rectify the environment that's actually around you. The thing is that we're in the process of it actually happening. This is a great point, but some people will rather be when it already happened. And those are the people who don't want to do any work. And those are the people that are going to continuously see, because that's what magic really is. Magic is a system that was created that's like gambling. You're trying to gain or get something that you didn't even work for before you even deserve it. So it's always going to lead to disaster because it's premature. You see, so all of the Harry Potter and all those whole ideas of grasping something from ancient levels of teachings, and Hitler marching across the mountain to gather the books from Tibet, and them searching for the Holy Ark in Lower Egypt and bringing out the pyramids, all that stuff, unless you have the age and the wisdom and the knowledge in order to do it, you only create more of a situation that, guess what? The children end up fixing. See, people can't write the end of the story. They don't see how, in the beginning, you look at it from a pyramidal type level, it had to exist that way. If I go back to your grandmother, her grandmother, her grandmother, her grandmother, I'm eventually get back to a small village of people. If I keep going back, I'm eventually get back to one being. It's something that's in mathematics. It's not in somebody's hocus pocus and magical stuff. So this means that we were all together. Now, if you look at the story closely, you'll find that the greatest problems started coming about when we populated to a degree where we wanted to separate and divide from each other, meaning that we got on each other's nerves. So what happens is that then here's another thing. Like, so you can, to tell you the truth, I couldn't even go through this whole complex conversation of how humanity evolves. It's interesting. And those kind of thoughts, honestly, you should put yourself to sleep on. That's another major key within lucid sleep, is to go through some type of level of story where you're creating detail before you go to bed. Just the same one. And the best one is the creation story. Still realizing that when you do this and you go into sleep, it just picks up from there. But again, I don't understand the benefits of the lucid dreaming. And that's why when people were just looking at the lucid dreaming like a PlayStation, it wasn't giving it the credit. That's what I'm saying is that when we oftentimes look at things just in this way that the world is saying, oh, this is what it is. You can go in and you can control your dream and do whatever you want. Someone's like, oh, okay, great. I'm going to do what I want. And that's exactly how they sound. But the reality is that you have to see everything that you approach that's new for its new potential. You can't put it into the same frequency that you're into. And that, again, I think is one of the biggest things that we've delivered today in this conversation, to see that we can take the best thing, then send it through our filters. And if our filters are dirty, then we see it as something that is distorted and dank and divided. And this was also known by seeing through two eyes. You notice 2 is a dualistic number. So you see everything in reality through 2 eyes. So how would it not be hard-coded dual? Especially when you live in a reality that has a day and a night dual. Okay. And then so now there's this black man and a white man. Okay, dual. So now when you sit back or up in the Arabot, meaning in the highest state of consciousness, the Keter of yourself, and you sit back up there and you're like, man, look, I'm telling you, you're down there on the dual plane. They're playing the dual game on you. They got Deuce, the god, who's Zeus. You got them battling like a yin and yang. You got one saying they're right, he's really white. Then you got the other one saying he's right, he's black. They're both absence of color. There's only 7 colors in the spectrum or the prism. Everybody's forgetting that there was original light shine through the prism first. We should probably see what that is. There's also a big dynamo in the sky pushing out an unlimited amount of energy that if for some reason it goes away, everything's going to get really crazy. So I need to know who that is. Start asking the real questions. This is how you get on the astral quest. The astral quest is within yourself. It's the inner verse. And the answers will come up because the universe still functions like that. It's like this big, I don't even want to give it the term supercomputer because it's not inorganic. But the thing is that when you start really spitting out and you want to know the right questions, now when you get the answers, you're holding the frequency to those answers. Let me show you the keys to this. Now you're holding this frequency of quote unquote truth, higher truth. So it's very difficult to hold the frequency of higher truth and not become higher truth. You see what I mean? And then at certain points, there's an over the hill point where you start realizing, okay, wait a minute. All right, I know where I'm at. Okay, I'm awake. I wonder how long I've been asleep. Okay, what is it this time? What's the deal this time? And then you make the story from there. Oh, okay, you're here on Earth. It's obviously, 2012, they're expecting a major transition, but there's not much going on, not much moving and shaking. What's going on? Oh, there's a monopoly, a moonopoly on the religion through monotheism. There's some type of refractor, meaning something is blocking the light between people and the original level of themselves. I think the term they use is called evangel or angel, someone who's supposed to convert the energy of this entity they're calling God into something that they can actually communicate with. Okay, we got an error because that's a short circuit. This is how you have to look at the entire situation, meaning that all we've been experiencing and our ancestors have been experiencing is somebody explaining to them what the totality really is. It's now time for us to see it. And then guess where you're going to see it? And it's not outside. This is also the key. Here's the key to the soul. You've never seen your soul with your 2 eyes because it's not outside, it's inside. And so you only can meet it inside. And so that's why the entire dimension is just wired like, hey, look at me, I'm outside. And it's as simple as that. This becomes the core secrets to the world. So when you start shutting the doors, they call this like cutting these tubes that are connected to you, if you can see them on the astral plane. You start cutting these tubes of things that are feeding energy. As I told you, you spend energy like currency every day. They start cutting these tubes. And then you start to retain more of the energy and the chakra wheels start coming back on. Then now when the wheel comes on, the entire information disk of the biorhythm of you connected to that light or that spectrum comes on. And this, of course, is the challenge because now you have to you're coming into full realization. So most people, they open up the lower chakras first. So the lower chakra has everything to do with the fire, the world, what's been happening as it to a child when they're younger. All of that starts to come up. And this is like a heat, and it's a fire and a passion, but actually it's an anger, excuse me. And as that anger starts to come up, if one has understand how to channel this energy properly, they use this anger and everything that's happened in the past to them to actually drive the reason why they're going to activate now. Meaning not allowing yourself to go into another world where you come into it as like a child, and you have to have someone that that can take care of you, and then sometimes they don't take care of you properly. So,
Sevan, can I call a couple of people in?
Sure.
Because some people are eager to ask questions. So I'm just gonna call a couple of people in now. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think Kenrick wants to ask you another question whilst let's see. So go ahead, Kenrick. I think you need to turn the mic on.
But I certainly feeling what you're saying about the astrological principles. I mean, in the Brahmin tradition as well as Kemet, where you were born, the time and date and time had a bearing on your personality and your purpose in life. And whilst you don't condone it, certainly when you have certain anger based on history, for example, the 4th century Holocaust or slavery, segregation, colonialism, apartheid, the anger is understandable, well, not just, and perhaps somewhat justified given the horror of that experience. But I certainly agree that love is certainly the principal healing power, and shouldn't we be concerned with healing the community based on drugs and gang culture and guns and imprisonment. I'd also wanted to ask you, I mean, a normal would catch me on occasion flicking through Ebony magazine or Upscale or something like that and go crazy, you know, and they say some of these guys are probably adepts too. But where do we go from here? I mean, do we just sit in the ghetto and light a candle, as I was joking with my brother with, or what was our vision for us as a people? What is our purpose? Once you become an adept or become activated, where do you go? We can't all sit in our rooms and eat healthy and meditate and study. There has to be certainly a larger vision. Do you have that for your supporters out there? And give us some more ideas on that. What is your vision for us once you become adepts or become activated?
For sure. Let me just turn this mic down real quick here. Just to get excessive level feedback here. But so first of all, we need to get very clear what we're talking about with activation. Activation is not when you see an activated person, you'll know it because the level of energy is immense. Like the energy itself it's not something that's just like, oh, I'm activated and then, you know, you can walk around and go to the supermarket or whatever. That's why the activation energy has
You're breaking up again, Sevan, sorry.
Okay, yeah, I'm getting some type of feedback on the line. Do you want to reset the line? Oh, okay. Yeah, I think someone is added to the line. So.
Back, yeah? Yep.
Okay, yeah. I think we had 2 people on the line there, so it probably just pulled it down a little bit.
Okay, yeah. He said that he muted himself, but he was listening, and I've cut him off. So let me get him in again, please, because they are eager to ask questions. Kevin's taking up the mic.
I'm done.
No. I would definitely want to answer the question because, I mean, it's important. Like, first of all, it's not a game to me at all about the activation as far as what it really entails. It's actually really the thing that has to be done at this point. That's why this is really one of the last lines of, if you want to call it defense, meaning that this whole situation has gone on long enough. Like humanity's level of degradation at this point is reaching extreme limits. Humanity and their souls that exist here are being suggested to do things that are definitely going to take them down into a deeper path in a lower vibration. So what happens is the activated humans step in from a level not from like, okay, let me go take a couple Ethereum golds and see if I can meditate a couple of times on my balcony to lose some weight or something. That'll work. Like I said, it's still gonna be able to answer even the person's just regular levels of what they want to do for themselves. But the real potential in this, which has already been seen, is actually in a person that can heal, and people that can heal the world in a very short period of time, because the levels of energy that they display is shocking. And this is already talked about through different texts. It's the only thing that actually shocks these powers into saying, okay, it's time to lay down arms. Because remember, inside of the Cabal, they know what they're doing. So you have to go into their mind too. That's why I said this is wholeness. They know what they're doing, but what they've attached themselves to is an energy that is basically got them at its service. And so the only thing, and these are like your mother and father trapped dealing with this being. Some people have family members that have been in religion and stuff, and so they need to stop acting like they don't need to figure out why is the religion holding their aunts and uncles and grandparents and stuff like that, and what is really in the Cabal or the cable, which is also known to be something that can hold a person by the leg. So again, I'm getting a lot of reverb. I think we may have to not add that many people to the conversation, but okay. So just to get through to this, so that people understand that the activation, it takes the individual that is really in their mind, they actually, mind, body, and soul, that they actually want to do this. It tests them first on all those levels. The abilities are already there, meaning that this is not something that is so hard to do and is impossible, etc. It's readily accessible for the individual that puts themselves through the right types of situations. Those situations it's just common sense. I'm not talking about some occult ritual or anything like that. It's common sense. One, you are what you eat. You can't eat the blood. There's a lot of other things that tie into that. You were given the trees and you were given the fruit. Two, your air. You have to understand how air is, it's free. So it was given to you by, if you want to call it the higher creation, higher being, whatever. So you have to understand what that gift really is. Because you can take air into your body and it opens up other channels. Okay. So the next thing is that still see you're in a plethora of information on the web and on the rest of the physical reality. So what you do in the physical reality and how much time you spend accessing that kind of information does say a lot to your subsequent bodies to as how persistent you are about getting into this activation. Because notice how this works like this. There's many of your bodies, quote unquote, that are just waiting to see the activity from you. They've been hearing you thinking about it. Oh yeah, I'm going to stop doing this. It's like your shadow. You're teaching your shadow based on every action that you make. But your shadow is being taught by you, meaning that how your shadow ends up acting later on is going to be because of what you taught it. Now, for people who don't like to reflect with their shadow, think of it as a child. If you have a child in this world, how you treat your child and raise your child and what you do is going to govern how your child grows up, because it's going to become a byproduct of what you're doing. So it's the same thing with your spiritual bodies, which we start to ignore. And so this activation, it's very serious because it's specific to exactly what the person is going to need to do in their nucleus to cause activation within their nucleus, because each person acts as orgone. And this is not look at very precisely the knowledge. Now, when you get the information that's the truth, you begin to correct your DNA. It starts to correct your DNA because your DNA is information. The junk DNA would be then junk information. So when you get the truth, it will replace the junk information. Now your DNA is changed. So this, if you were looking at the ore, you would see certain fields begin to become brighter on the individual. Now, what you will also see is when that individual goes into like a mall or a place like that and their field is spinning, when they stand next to a person, then they start to spin inside of this other person's field. This other person's field then picks up only one bit, if you want to call it, one bit, which contains the complete information of each person's auric field, of the information that now contains the portion of corrected DNA. Then that all DNA does is copy and replicate. So now it takes that in and copies and replicates. Okay. Now, the reason why, of course, I had to figure that out was because of just how negative energy affects us also in what we're taught to take in and what music we're listening to, etc. But it also applies on the positive level. So, and then also if you understand orgone and how orgone works and crystals and the crystals connection with the purest levels of the color when it hits the spectrum, then you also can pull connections from that too. So this activation, it can really reach every single level of thought, but only in the highest sectors of thought. So even if you're not a thought-based person and you're just dealing with the earth, we can show you right from the earth within a couple words what this energy does. But realistically, most people that really work with the earth, they already know about the energy. What they're waiting on still is higher vibratory energy. Remember, there's people already working with their hands. They're in some countries, they're already digging, they're setting up communities. They have a certain level of energy that they're holding already, a frequency. The only thing that they need is other brothers and sisters to join in building that frequency. Then what is this? It's an organic net. It's not an artificial heart-generated net, but it actually functions underneath those nets. This is what a real resistance is, a place that can get to you on the ground, not in the air. This is why they also make everyone's God in the air. He's in the sky. He's in heaven. He's on a mountain. Everywhere but where you're at, right? So that you can see the gimmick, and that's why I say I spend hours talking about, the whole the diaboli and the diabolicalness that's been set up on the earth as men and women keep getting fooled, and the continuous ensuit of that. Or I can talk about the activation and how many individuals have already began to expand not only in this dimension but in dimensions beyond. Meaning that what's actually happening is a lot of the creations that you've seen that have still assisted this world were not done by everyone. They were done by one or two people. And now everyone is enjoying things based on that invention. It's always like that. That's why I say we function as a unit, because any fertile tree spends most of its time with its seeds not completely ripe, right? So that's the same thing happening in the world. The world is abundant right now. It shows abundance because things keep growing. But that's also happening with the population. But most of it's still in its needing to get fully mature stage. So those of us that do become fully mature, the ones at the top of the tree, they always say the ones that are most exposed to the sunlight, get mature in order to allow these other people, places, things, etc., on the dimension to get their level of maturity without being disturbed from that. Meaning that right now, it's still accessing us, this world is accessing us to do something. It's not just asking to you to know the story. It's also saying, hey, get up, man, I'm hurting, but I took care of you. See, it's almost like a test in your own, if you see it on small, simple levels, it's like a test of your own nature. Because it's like, look, I fed you, like the earth did feed us when we were babies. We were there eating from the fruit. Everything that's here was generated from this earth. And then now something's happening to me. Like I got all these other cats. They're doing this other things. Other kids of mine, I can't really do that much to them because they're still my kids, but maybe you guys can work it out. You can just play this out like a regular story. And then you start to see that the ones that embrace that where they are, like nature, every single thing that we're using is pulled from nature. The trees make a crippled man climb trees. The trees make a person completely healthy when they're sick. And now, of course, they've taken and demonized that and made it into these pills. But all those chemicals and things came from the trees first. So you can also see how the reality, and this is another thing of where's the bright side? It's the bright side. The entire reality was already configured that it would be literally like a garden. The only thing is that something convinced us to start getting in conflict. And now to chime in on what you said earlier about that the anger is understandable, I would have to say that there is no understanding in anger. Have you ever been really angry? There's only anger there. Just as the person said in the song, you have to lay like a young soul down on the ground, and then you're wondering why this has happened. And then, the whole thing gets blurry after that. So basically those people will never be in a position to be able to govern fully of what's going on here. Now they're seeing through a certain filter. It's not saying who's right, who's wrong, whether they're good, they're bad, they should be doing it, should not be doing it. Like that's a whole nother dynamic. That's now based on, more of emotional stuff. But let's now say, okay, wait a minute. Where are the heroes? Where are the companions? Where are the riders of the light? Where are all the rest of these comic book creatures that they created to help do something about the world when it's dealing with the beast? But first, the battle begins in the inside. This is the interesting part, because you can go run out there and try to attack them and totally get knocked out. So the reality is that just to show you, hey, the battle is not outside. It's actually within. And also, guess what? That's where it ends. See, there's just certain people that need to go back inside and finish it inside. And then the reality sees the results of it. Things are not being controlled from here. This is the play out. This is why you can actually keep yourself from dying in this world, from your dream world. You dream about something that you need to avoid, and then in reality, something suggests you should go the other way. But that was like 5 or 6 days ago, because there's a time delay to this reality. So where's everything controlled? Now you see the keys to getting in more of you see why the importance of the keys to getting in more of the vehicles that are closer to where you are on the timeline. I mean, closer to, again, faster vehicles is what I'm saying. Using your mental body first, learning that, then using the spirit body, then to get into the more organic fields. But again, that has to be another entirely different conversation.
Mm-hmm. Okay, Sevan, yeah. We've got Samuel on the line as well. He wants to ask you a couple of questions. If Samuel, you want to unmute and ask him a question?
Yeah. I wanted to thank you for that phenomenal start, sort of just really waking up and pumping. So I have 2 questions. I guess you can take your pick or see if you want to answer both. The first question I have is, a few times you've equated Jesus and Apollonius of Tyana as being the same being. And this is important to me because I have a lot of family who are kind of caught up with, as you say, this being, Tetra, you've called it, or the Tetragrammaton, or Jehovah, or, it goes through its permutations in different cultures, but basically they seem to kind of have indebted themselves to this thing. And then you get someone like the Messiah showing up in the New Testament, or this new version of what was once old. And he just looks like an activated human to me. And, looking deeper into what Apollonius of Tyana was into, it's like alchemy and hermetic knowledge. And that all seems to be about sort of evolution as well. Would you say that that's the way that we can go about kind of bringing people into a higher understanding of it and freeing them from a kind of prison which they seem to have gotten themselves into with this sort of guilt? And
for sure. I mean,
yeah.
Great question. I mean, it's definitely very. I'm not sure if my line sounds a little hollow, but I'm sure I'm coming through clear. But it's very, very imperative for us to also come up with solutions of how to walk people out of situations. Like, instead of staying on one side or other and just saying, hey, look, if you believe in that, then it's not going to work for you. It's never going to work for you. Goodbye. Like, you definitely don't want to leave a person in that situation. That's not what a bridge builder does. So what I see is that originally, I wanted to actually answer your question directly, just as far as the question itself, before I got into the entire story of the anointed Isu. But it really boils down to what we talked about in the conversation earlier today about when you finally do achieve the energy, what kind of person you are ultimately governs how it acts out from there, like what frequency you convert it into. And so you'll find definitely in the documents of the Isu, it's basically a Venusian tradition. And this is why Rome and Venus and Amor is the son of Venus, comes into play, because you'll find out that the archangels, or the angels, Michael, Raphael, Uriel, etc., are the archons. They are the cherub that God rides on. And this makes a logical sense, because obviously God uses the angels and commands them to go do things. Cherubim act as elevators at times, as far as getting people to talking to this entity. What you're finding is that these are the elder brothers. their plight with the planet, which is they've made a lot of children, and they have different races, different colors, different creeds that they've been involved in, that their genetics is passing through. And this keeps a drama, which is the root to the word dragon mother, but this is a drama that is continuously playing out on Earth, where everyone just kind of stays with the story that's being written in the sky under the celestial dragon of Draco. So, and then Sirius, Big Five, by way of Venus, and the moon as a refractor, and then Saturn as communications, and, just basically an array of a world. Like what we wake up and exist in every single day, but where it's really started first. So the next level, of course, seems to be where people are locked into that they can't create a world. And this, of course, is a perfect question for today's conversation, because you can see the whole idea of why you would need to go to some other being and ask it for the assistance of where you're going to go when you die, and some of the things that you feel like you can't get accomplished on your own is would create an impediment, but also is, again, an extreme level of our immaturity. Because it still shows that we'll go outside looking for something else that is truly inside, which was the original scriptures of any individual that came across as a Messiah type individual, which was, again, there's no documentation that Jesus was walking, and Apollonius was definitely walking around, and there was many others like Apollonius in the Nazarite motif. That's why Jesus is Jesus of Nazareth, because Nazarite motif is long hair. It's the highest member in the order of the Sanhedrin. So this is also someone who's going into the prophecy of trying to go into the prophecy of the Messiah. However, you'll find a huge switch with the story they choose to play in the original story of the Messiah, because the Messiah was in fact a warrior. Like the whole Messiah tradition comes from Krishna. It comes from Krishna coming and beating the crap out of all of the dark gods. So at that point, that's what people were expecting when they were expecting another Messiah to come and rid them of the plagues of evil. So what happens here is that when it's transferred into the Western tradition, it actually becomes an individual that is a pacifist, which I'm now coming to the understanding is also tied into Julius Flavius and all of the Caesars, really a whole group of Isus or Messiah types that just wish to reign on earth as God, as a lord, which is actually the correct term. There's lords in Britain today, but reigning on earth as the king. And this way they can absorb the priesthood. But there has to be a step-by-step play to do that. And Jesus is another one of those components in order to get it complete. I believe, again, most people are not as intelligent enough to catch the whole story, to read the whole story before they get caught up in some emotional bag about something that brushed them very briefly in the night, or something that they believe was healed by some invisible force, when in fact it was generally healed through them raising their frequencies and desiring to see that come to pass. So it's very clear what those forces are really about. And what I can see is, instead of going at the people with it at this point, instead of trying to get them to see it because they're veiled, so how could they see anything? You need to go right at the source of the situation, which is where we're really working with. And we work with that through frequency. Overall, when you bombard their frequency with a higher frequency, they have no choice but to desist. So that's really how it's really taken place, instead of, like I said, trying to wake up these people who don't have time to sit through the entire mega saga of the Holy Roman Empire, backdoored into the Elizabethan Empire, and then turned into the going into Kush. And then, because you got to remember, see, there's a connection here with these whole Messiah stories that also it shows you the dominion. See, the dominion, that's why they worship on Sunday, is about people still giving up their energy and worshiping something. Because if you see how this whole Messiah culture traces back, you find that the king was often associated with being the Messiah. That's why they call him the King of Kings. So what you're really getting into is the same thing of where earlier humanity was intruded upon by older brothers that were displaying to them activation. Okay, now look at this, Samuel. They were displaying to them activation, basically. Now look what I can do with the Ankh rod. Look what I can do with this, and I'm throwing electricity. We got lightning bolts. We got craft. Okay, so pause right there, and then fast forward all the way to right now, and you'll find the exact same thing still playing. But now just a story. Now these beings are not even here anymore, and there's a story still echoing that there is one external that has accomplished all these things, and then everyone looks to it as the sun. And then because the sun is on the outside, somehow this logically means to people that the sun is not on the inside. And then this whole thing continues to ensue. So that's also why when you try to explain this to someone for a moment, they may be like, okay, I see what you're saying. But by the next day, as the sun rises again, a program is trying to reload itself and say, oh, well, no, the sun is the risen God. It's the risen Savior Jesus. And then they killed the sun. And then, that's why now we all have to work. So there's basically this whole program that loads every time the person sees certain symbols that they've associated with certain words, you see? Like, because notice how if you're a Christian, the word sun is synonymous to you with Jesus. So then on the subconscious level, when you look at the sunshine in the sky, you subconsciously connect that with Jesus. So if someone actually tells you that Jesus is not the sun, then you want to fight them and tell them, yeah, he is. But look what you're saying. Because in a minute, now here's how deep it is. If Jesus was a real person, let's say, then he actually was the sun, because everyone is a piece of the sun. So they're not really lying. They're just not telling the whole truth. You see what I mean? And this is what they call the forked tongue. So notice how there's an emphasis, especially in the Talmud, on the one who's causing a lot of trouble speaks with a forked tongue, meaning that it sounds so close to the truth, but then the rest of the information is not there. This is also where most people that are calling themselves adept have to make sure they're not doing. I take people to the control point first. That's how this conversation started. Here's what you need to do for yourself. Now, as far as story time, because we're storytelling people, let's pull up close by the fire, and let me tell you about the ancient times when Xerxes was running around the planet acting all crazy, and his brother Ra, and all the rest of the Anunnaki, and then how these people are still evoking these energies. Now, here's the part they don't like to be talked about. If you really dig deep into Islam, you're really devout, you're a real submitter, and you have the prostration mark on your head, then at some point you run into a sharif. And then a sharif is the person who can really control the spirits that wander throughout the desert with the names that come out of the Quran. So if he's kind enough to tell you, that come out of the Quran. And I have a reverb going on here. So
someone's called in and they've still got their radio on. Just get them to turn it off.
Okay. So again, this would be then.
Burnett, could you turn your radio off, please, or the just mute it. Just mute your line until you're ready to talk.
And the reason why I want to bring this point up. Okay. Let me see.
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
Okay. The reason why I want to bring this point up is because there's a whole army, for better lack of words, of people who don't even know what's going on inside of the religion that they're worshiping. They don't even know what's going on inside of there. So this creates basically a buffer from the truth anyway. So with all of these traditions, whether it's the story of Jesus, whether it's the story of Muhammad, whether it's a story, you won't never have that story anyway, because there's a whole buffer of people who don't even know the story but are willing to lay down their life for it. And so this gets into, so I guess that's your first question. So just to understand that you're dealing with it, the way that it has to be dealt with is not really talking back and forth, unless you know that your family member is someone who listens to reason. But talking back and forth with them about the situation is definitely not going to get it solved. It's more easier for you to reserve that energy and to start perfecting your field more, and then just sit next to them. I mean, at this point, because of how much that means to, because remember we talked about earlier in this conversation, something's always trying to change your frequency. So if you're working on staying on this harmonic frequency where you're building a lot of energy, especially once you understand the bioenergetics, then you're starting to think, well, you can clearly see it's just a play to try to get you out of your energy. Someone just coming in and say, hey, I don't believe what you're doing is the truth. It's like, I mean, so that's also where this ego thing comes in at, because if you get offended by that, then
also where this ego thing comes in at, because if you get offended by it.
So I'm really sorry about this, Sevan.
That's all right.
Pleasant.
So let's go with the next question, Samuel. So hopefully that
to speak to you, Sevan.
Why don't you just do one radio show where people do a Q&A No, seriously, Seven. Honestly, I think you should come on the show again, and we should just literally dedicate the whole show to Q&A, because a lot of people are really like,
eager to ask you questions.
Yeah.
For sure. I mean, I'm definitely up for it. I'm definitely going to have to probably wrap things up here within the next 30 minutes just so I can go do some baby time. And but yeah, I mean, you could see how the more that we have this conversation, the easier that it'll become to get out the massive level of information.
There was some technical difficulties. Can you mute the line, please, President? Thank you.
Okay.
Is that's 7? Yeah.
Yeah, I just removed him from the conversation. They'll probably just fix it and then call right back in.
Yeah.
Okay, Samuel, did you have a second question, or so you can understand?
Yeah,
okay, so just to finish it now. Hold on real quick.
Sometimes I feel.
Hold on real quick. I just want to finish it so people understand exactly what we were saying, because the original question was the association between Jesus and Apollonius of Tyana is because now once that these individuals who are obviously the members of the Pythagorean order of death, who carry the pentagram upside down, which is called the brack or the plow sign. So this particular cult decided that they would capitalize on the story of Dammuz, who Dammuz is the child of Semiramis and Nimrod. And it runs somewhat of a strange crucifixion story, but it's not exactly like the Christian one, but it's similar enough. And so what they started doing was passing out some of the occult novels that they had already obtained from the Eastern world in regards to a master deity that they knew to be the king of all demons. And this became known as Agatha demon, or Abraxas, meaning 365, an angel that stands on every single day of the year. So you see this amulet oftentimes, especially in Rome. I mean, it's all over the internet. But what you're dealing with is that people started to get tired of, you got to use this demon to cast out this demon and this angel to do this and this angel. So they were trying to consolidate the whole thing. And they created this concept that there would be one grand being of them all. And this is also the root to the stories of these crucified saviors, etc., is that it's an actual testament or a redemption process taking place where they're basically bringing the same old religion underneath what appears to be a new character, but is actually the same thing again. So you have to be, very careful that you can't see that once it starts to become an old story, because people are tired of hearing about Jehovah in the Old Testament, getting all upset. Then they're like, okay, we need to create exactly opposite. This is called a double bind. This is when they already think about what you're going to go and do next. So I guess that person hasn't figured out how to mute their line, so I just removed them again. But this means that again, that the double bind you have to be careful of, because it's almost like out of the frying pan into the fire. Many people thought they escaped Islam and then found Christianity, only to find that there's the exact same thing going on in the background. And this is that. But notice the problem still comes from within, because it's the idea of going to something else to cure and to fix your problems, when it's really you inside, especially the individuals around you. Because remember, all the individuals around you are also cosmic representations of the actual energies that are present in your life at this moment. So if you just pay attention to what's going on around you, you don't have to go all the way out to some, again, temple or something somewhere. You can get the most expansion from fixing those situations. So that should finish that question. Apollonius is definitely connected to the Pythagorean order, and they were spreading the knowledge of numbers and the pentagram, converting people's languages to numbers all around the world, and so that they can implement their next level of system through mathematics. That's what you're dealing with.
Wow. Yeah. So thanks a lot for answering that question. That's great. I think your answer also kind of made the second question obsolete, insofar as my question was about abilities and talents, which I feel like I have, but I really felt like concentrating on just healing the situation with whichever means are available will just get the energy flowing in the right way, and it'll become clear through common sense. Would you agree with that?
For sure. I mean, Sam, you've been definitely in this long enough. We've been following this whole quest for quite some time, and we can definitely see where the mission really accompanies the energy levels, and it's just from there, it's just figuring out and getting more of the information about exactly what's going on, and then that kind of gives the details to what we need to be doing, and then you find exactly what is specific to you. As I said, everyone has their own thing that they're doing, and actually the interesting part about it is you're already doing it. Sometimes it's just when you maximize something, you can see more of it. So sometimes you don't, if you really want to know where your gift is, and that's for everyone on this line, it's something that you're already doing, but it's sometimes on such a minuscule level, you don't even recognize it. So when you maximize with higher levels of energy, it just makes what you are amplified. And it starts to bring out a great deal of what has been more or less the subtle or forgotten part of who you really are. And what we're dealing with here is that we're very similar to children waking up. We've been in a reality with clearly more advanced beings. There's several components on top of our situation, but the good part is that we're here, we're breathing, we're reasoning, and we need to take it from here. The other thing is stop going into the past or to the netherworld. That's why they love to spread this netherworld stuff around everywhere. If you look into the womb, you're going to see darkness. So, I mean, why expect to see something else when you look in there? But you understand that that's the material in which everything grows out of. If you want to know its real place. So trust me, notice it's the dookie that most of these plants are growing out of and these flowers are growing out of. So let's act like we can't see the as below, so above nature to exactly what that means. That means this way of behaving, and at times this very vulgarness in the reality starts to produce these individuals that don't see that that's the frequency they need to partake with anymore. And then they start to work on finding other frequencies that are more habitable, and they start to spread those frequencies into the reality. Then when the person is giving the choice again, they always choose the better frequency. Like if you ask a person and you have the real keys to the knowledge, and you ask a person, do you want the knowledge or do you want to be ignorant? Come on, man. Is that a trick question? So still realize what you're into here. It's for people, they will definitely choose to expand themselves. The real thing that's going on here, though, is that a lot of the knowledge has not been put out, not only in the proper way, but also things have been omitted. Some people have not looked into every arena. I've looked into spirituality. I've looked into frequency, looked into cymatics, colors, shapes, art. You look into every single major information field of the world and just skim across the top. And when you'll start seeing the exact layout of everything. And so that's the only thing that we're really doing now is working to put that information together so that people can understand it better. I tend to like to use pictures and things, and we can do that next time because there's another stream channel that I have connected, especially if you have some people that have some questions, because I can show them all of this stuff. It's not just like you hear me talk about it. I can show you the bioenergetic field, and I can show you where you can access this stuff and buy the magnets that are necessary to do what needs to be done. This is just not, side research. This is priority. And that's what it is for now. Like, honestly, to tell you the truth, I'm always expanding. Like right now when I hang out, there's a couple more things that I need to go do that are already expanding into other fields. I got new work, new research. I'm applying certain things. It's massive. So what else will we do in immortality? I just need to get people to ask themselves sometimes.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you very much for that, Samuel. We've got Tony, who's awaiting. He's been waiting for a long time now. Then we've got Peace, Blessings to come in. Okay. Also, a couple of other callers. So, Tony, if you would like to come and ask Sevan a question, please. Thank you.
Sevan, once again, thanks for your great work, mate. You're a diamond, true diamond.
Oh, thanks.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Sevan, can you hear Tony?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, more to the entities and obviously the other realms. What you were just talking with Samuel. Sort of a two-part question, really, because it's to do with dreams as well. The likes of psychedelics, DMT, and mushrooms. I have never witnessed entities in the realms that it's thrown me into. Where would you put that realm within psilocybin and dimethyltryptamine? And why wouldn't I have seen entities if they're so sort of prolific within the multiverses, as it were?
Good question. It's definitely because of, how this really works, especially with the psychedelics, is that you will see an entity if you're actually in an area where the entity is. So let's say, for instance, you take some psychedelics and you're in the forest, and there happens to be one of those forest entities there, and you go in, you'll see it because of the third eye. The third eye is being messed with even just a little bit, and that thing is already there. You can normally not see it with two eyes, but now because the third eye is slightly open, you can see it. Okay. But when you go into, let's say, just a park or at the house, what happens is that those fields are policed. Like, it's like the Men in Black run around out there. They don't let just any dark entity run around, only the ones that are going and coming based on the instructions that they've been given. So you won't see these basically entities just hanging out in the corner of your house. They've basically been exterminated. Where you'll see these entities is in the areas that have still been governed to be their areas. And this is why we still have these regions on our planet where there's a border. And if you don't have the right paperwork, you can't cross into that country. I learned this because a gentleman that I had talked to a while back was saying that, you know, he was into this whole thing with magic, and he had these spirits that he was bringing from Africa in pots. And I was, you know, I was definitely getting out of this guy's way. In fact, the guy that actually introduced me to him was like, man, there's this guy.
Yeah,
he can make it.
I've got this is another thing. We're having where I live locally. There's quite a few of us, about 15 of us, get together on a few times a year, and they're magicians and all sorts, to be honest. But they're still summoning entities in. Which is, you know, a worry for me. I mean, like I say, when you've answered the question earlier, it seems that I've had a pass to sort of get out and beyond the normal construct, whereas a lot of people would be given entities to be put up with. I mean, I know a lot of people that have done, you know, been on ayahuasca, had really terrible trips, had to really face, you know, their egos, and it was more traumatic for them than so I think that I've managed to skip a boundary there, or one of the universes. I didn't have anything stopping me at the gate, and it was like everything just came flooding in. I could have, you know, as much as I wanted of it from the universe. It was giving me everything, but I couldn't bring it back here. That was part of the package deal that I was. It's like going on holiday. It's like a package deal. You can see it all, but you can't bring anything back. It's duty free, mate. It's quite funny you should mention that.
Yeah, I mean, if the astral line is, or astral hygiene, which is the person doesn't have a bunch of tag along energies, then there's really nothing to see. You know, realistically, in introspection, there's only just more feeling. There's not so much as an actual external or even a hyperdimensional entity to be there unless there's a ritual taking place. You see what I mean? And that's really how it works. Yeah. Like everyone that has.
Well, for me, it's just like a sensation of isness. Is the only way I can describe it. You're at all and one with everything. You are a part. You know, you are the everything. You know, so it's. I think this is. I hope this is what we're coming to when we can actually manifest and create at will. But I mean, that's a dangerous game to play. Look at what they're doing with it already in the world. You know what I mean?
For sure. I mean, it's still also what they're doing with it. I mean, I guess everyone's going to get their time. and so that's really what it is. It's like, I believe a lot of us will be have learned off the mistakes that we've been seeing in the reality. And then when it's our time to expand, we'll know exactly what not to do with the energy. And so, yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, another one I've got, it's sort of interrelated. It's to do with my dreams, and I've been able to not recall dreams, but I've always had the ability to go back into dreams. Many, many different varying dreams. I can pick a dream up. I'll probably go to sleep tonight and I'll pick a dream up from 20 years ago, but I'll still remember that dream as vividly as I did then and carry on with the story. Now, is this all interrelated, do you think, Sevan?
Well, it depends on the dream and in the circumstances that took place when you were having the dream. Because like that's why we kind of lay it out. You have to really be able to read the dream based on the symbols that you're seeing in it and how your mind has interpreted what those symbols mean. For instance, if it's let's say for instance it's a particular person, their name is Carol, but it's wanting to show you something with the letters just CAR or OL or something like this. Whatever you've attached it to, you'll see in the dream. So there's basically, if you have these dreams that are standing out and then you see them in your mind or you remember them crisply, very crisp, then there's tends to be some symbolism connected to them that has something to do with the past. But I don't want to sound like a psychic reader over here about dreams and things. Just to understand, that's why we gauge the lucid sleep and levels, because the dream world is very expansive, and even the mental planes that you enter when in psychedelics is very expansive. But it doesn't mean, like you were saying, that you can bring any of that back into this reality, because the mind has a hard time converting it into the geometry of this reality. However, the adept is capable of basically, like a computer has to do, it has to encrypt.
Yeah, I didn't get most of that, Sevan, to be honest.
Okay. Well, I was speaking again of how the information has to be encrypted and packed up the proper way before it can get into a physical reality. I'm not sure if you heard that.
So we're on about the unpackaging again, Savannah.
I'm just having a little trouble hearing, but yeah, what I'm saying is that when you bring something, when you're in any of these planes, and if it's something that is actually worth it, something that has something to do with truth, then you can actually, it gets converted into something that can be carried into 3D, or else it stays into the mental plane and into these astral planes where it's just basically another story running. Because you notice how the mind doesn't have a limitation of what it can cook up in the dream. So it's basically like it can respond based on what you're thinking right before you're thinking it. So from that level, you can go to an immense, like a whole book. If you could write it down, it'd be like a whole book of you just wandering through like the game Myst. So the reality is, is there a tool is there something that you use there that you can use there that has a connection with what's going on here? And of course, that's when you get into the advanced stages of lucid dream, where you go there to receive the information, and then you know how to translate it back into this reality. And most of the time, again, this kind of information is not like what people think. Sometimes people are looking for lottery numbers and things like that. It has nothing to do with that. It comes into more feeling. It's not necessarily written data. It's like when you come out of a dream, you're carrying that feeling with you. So don't think that it's like gone. Like when you were in that place, when you woke up, you're actually on that frequency still. Now, of course, that leads us all to the major thing, which is how do you stay there?
Well, the thing is with staying there, this is another bizarre thing. If I'm in the zone in that dream, Savannah, even if I get up to the toilet first thing in the morning, early in the morning, whatever, I can climb back into bed and go and pick up the dream exactly where I just left off.
Exactly.
And carry on the story.
Exactly. Like I said, there's just more to do with the dream. Like it's all the dream in itself is like we were talking about before. It's like the UFO. I'm not sure if you're lucid in there or not, but there is an intention. And then when you say, "Look, I want to know that. I want to access that," then it responds back. That's just all it really does. So that's why you kind of have to have it's like you approach something, but you have to have the question in order to get the answer. So it's the same thing with these expansive fields. You need to know what you want in order to get it. It's not going to necessarily act out on you.
Yeah. All right, great stuff. That's brilliant. That's really cleared a lot for me, that has, Sevan. But I thought the two were interrelated, and I just couldn't work out why I'd got a free pass to get out there and why I can jump around in my dreams as I do.
But yeah, I mean, it was still...
That's answered a lot, Sevan. Thank you very much, man.
No doubt.
Thank you, Tony, for calling in. Thank you very much.
Cheers. Thank you very much. Bye now.
Yeah, I think we've got a few more callers in. I don't think we'll be able to take any more tonight, though. But
hi.
Hi.
And your name and location?
Angelique, United States.
Hi, Angelique. Greetings from UK. You have a question for Sevan?
Yes. I wanted to know if you're a person, like you're talking about having dreams and being able to recall your dreams and being able to do things with your dreams. But if you're a person who if you have prophetic dreams, so you're not a person who dreams often, and if you do dream, you don't remember it, but when you do, something always follows it, like a life change or something like that with someone close, or yourself. How do you handle that same thing with people who dream a lot. If you're only a type of person who only dreams like once or twice a year where you remember, how do you basically do the same process as everybody else?
Okay, so are you just asking directly how could you have better dream recall, or are you asking me about as far as the status of just having only 2 dreams? I'm not sure if I'm understanding the question well.
I don't dream, and when I do remember or have a dream, it's always following some event.
Okay. Well, first of all, like I had to get to the root of these astral sagas going on, having these dreams, like even sometimes when you've had the dream and then, there's just all this stuff going on. There's individuals that you do certain things with them. And I started wanting to track down, where all this was really taking place. I would definitely say that what you're engaging in with everyone every day is there's a connection, especially if you're physically around that person or if you've ever been physically around them. There's a connection or a tie that you have to them. And so if you can see, it's almost like with these tentacles or dreadlocks, that something looks like that, with all these connections to different people's minds that we know and that we're connected to one way or another. And some people want to see maybe how this happens also. It's like when you rub your hand on someone, there are now thousands of millions of your DNA on top of them. And these DNAs are now like antennas, but they correspond back to you. So it's almost like they still have your essence on them. And because this stuff really more has to do with the etheric plane, then it connects right into why there's seem to be a synonymous dream field running. So that's the first part of just understanding why certain people interact in your dream. But overall, because you'll notice that the frequency with everything is going to play a heavy key. If you see certain individuals in the dream that that are associated with lower frequencies, you can automatically assume at that point that it's something also connected to your frequency to be able to see that. So let's just say what that is, because I've gone through different levels of my dreaming. And what I've noticed is that depending on my energy levels, it kind of governed who I dream with and what state they were in. And to a point where I was able to isolate it, that when I was on certain frequencies, I was seeing certain people because those people correspond more to those frequencies. While in another state, I would, be able to see some other people. So what you also have to see with the dreaming and not dreaming that much, but then when you do have a dream, then, you can remember that dream and it's crisp, is that there, just with everyone, there is a constant knocking from the other side of your consciousness saying, hey, wake up, wake up, wake up. So every now and then when the stars are right, I say the lineups according to your astrological positioning, there's like a clear pipeline for you. And so if you just so happen to find yourself in a position where you didn't have all these low draining things happen before you go to sleep, then boom, what occurs is a dream that you can actually remember, which is crystal clear. So basically at one point things lined up, everything was right for you, bam, you dreamed, you remembered it, then most of the time you don't at all. Now, the most of the time don't at all is very it's very imperative to look at a lot of the, how can I put it? To look at a lot of the different things that you're taking in. Like it's all about the filters. So if you can't see the dreams, especially after writing, if you're only having 2, I guess there's not much to write down. But they always say to start out by writing just small things or just anything. But even if you can't recall that or even recall having a dream at all, it's definitely a filter situation. And then this is where you got to go into the internal cleansing. And of course, we have internal cleansing kits on the site, but you can also see what the entire thing is about. You can get the manual, and then you can even find places that you can do it yourself or things off the internet. Just you have to make sure you do it in the right order. But
I'm not sure
it's whole music.
where that's coming from.
So yeah, but that's what you're.
Commercial.
Yeah, we're going to commercial.
Okay.
Okay.
We don't have it.
I muted you guys, then the commercial comes on and it's not muted. So.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
But that's what you're looking at for sure. Like it's definitely the filters. Everything that has to do with sight. Like if I can't see it, it has to do with one of the filters being clogged. The filters are the organs. And it is very easy to isolate why they're clogged. It's almost important for us to just admit that they're clogged before we start saying, well, how did that get clogged? because it's just like a car. If you don't change the filter in 2 years, 3 years, you can expect for that filter to be dirty, if not, almost gone out of there. And it's the same thing with the body. The organs were generally flush by the flora and fauna that we grew up around. But now that we don't have any of that in our lives, and also even the essences that we grew up around help propel us. Let me explain that also. A lot of the flora and fauna were trees and things that we would eat that would help propel our astral body. And the reason is because if you notice with the aura also has to be healthy. If you see if you can see auras, if you see like a ghost, like gaseous, like what you would see on a hot road type aura around a person that's only about 4 or 5 inches thick, and you don't see any colors, this is the sign of an individual that has basically no ground. They have no soil that their spirit is actually growing in. And becomes with those individuals a very extreme loss of identity, and they also have a ability to pick up with any kind of knowledge. So where the root to where that comes from, though, is there's ways to cure that. Like, I think we should talk about that just for a moment. Like, you have to see where there's correspondence in the physical reality to things that can help your aura. And because your aura has a lot to do with colors, you'll find that certain crystals, especially just the regular chakra crystals, help you balance or magnetically buffer, because crystals have a magnetic field on them, magnetically buffer those chakras, which allow them to repair themselves. That's basically just the whole gambit of how you can increase sight if your filter is clogged. Is first physically clean it, so that way it doesn't have the same problem again. And then after that, magnetically buffer it. Find the crystal that corresponds to the chakra, and then you'll experience no problems within it.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Angelique.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Bye-bye. We also have Gresham. I think we can have one more caller, Sevan. Yeah, is that right?
Yeah. I got 5 minutes. No, I'm joking.
Is Gresham on the line? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Hi. How you doing?
I'm doing good. Am I coming through? Okay.
You're coming through loud and clear. Thank you.
Okay. Well, my question, I'll get to it, and it won't take very long to say it. But basically, about 6 years ago, I basically decided, I was about 20 years old and decided that I would try to advance myself spiritually, or try to kind of awaken. And without going into all the details, many things went wrong with that decision, and I experienced extreme trauma of a magical and spiritual nature. And as a result, I was diagnosed with a mental illness and put on a number of drugs. And where I am now is I'm at peace with being on these drugs, at least temporarily. But one of them in particular is often diagnosed for bad dreams. And I was put on this because at one point for 2 months straight, I had the same dream over again. And so basically, I've had a horrible time with nightmares, but I found that lucid dreaming is always something I've wanted to pursue. But this medication, its action is specifically that it represses stress hormones, and it represses anxiety responses to things in dreams, and it seems to have the effect of keeping me from having any vividness to my dreams. So basically, what I'm wondering is, like, medications like that, is there any negative effect to the spiritual or dreaming body from long-term use of them?
Well, overall, anytime that, it's really simple to understand, especially with the spirit body, because, it's when you go into a field and you can tell the energy that's there and that's resident there, then if it's wholesome energy, like what you would associate with, like, let's say milk and cheese or abundance, then it equals one thing. And then if it's vampiric energy or like a vacuum, then it equals degradation. So from those 2 points, that's pretty much how you determine if the dream field is becoming harmful for your spirit body. Now, of course, in any state that the spirit is not growing, whether it's from, knowledge, wisdom, or, essence, etc., then it's going to find itself in trouble. So what I've learned in all of this, because this is an ailment that it just start plaguing us. Like, we've been throughout history really trying to cure our ailments. And of course, this is why most people went to the one who carried the double-twined serpent, or the Asclepius, which is also a Zazel, or the god of the forest, because of the knowledge of the trees and how to cure things. But there was, of course, a lot of deceit and trickery from that level. So where it really left us is one group of people don't like to dig into any more about how we're going to figure out how we're going to cure problems through using nature, while the same people with the double-twined serpent Asclepius sign are now into what they wanted to do anyway, which is pharmacy and chemistry, and making these drugs that actually inhibit a lot of the chakra centers. So what I would say definitely is that you have to still see it boils down to vibratory frequency, how you can increase the oscillation and balance out the oscillation in the body, which is really where all ailments come from. Because, of course, all ailments in the past and in history were associated and diagnosed as a spiritual situation.
I think someone needs to mute their thing.
Yeah. Angelique, would you like to can you mute your line, please?
Okay.
Could you mute your line? We're getting some feedback coming through.
That's not my line.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. But again, we have to see that all ailments are due to the imbalance of the body, and how to fix the imbalance of the body is to understand where it's off balance at. There's several different ways that we can really go at this, but if you've already tried it spiritually and you've tried it mentally and you don't seem to be getting much result, go physical. Because when you're becoming primarily physical, even all the desires still boil down to something physical or something you want in the physical. That means that there's been a heavy imbalance within the physical body, and it must be put in check. Once it's put in check, because the physical body moves at a certain vibratory frequency when it moves in as prime, meaning that the only way that the physical body can move into prime is if then all the vehicles start to oscillate at the same degree as the frequency of the body. So in order to break free of that and to release yourself from what the body has degraded itself into at any point, and then move to a point where you can actually regenerate it. We're not talking about abandoning the body. We're talking about actually regenerating it, but not from the perspective of being inside of it. But to accomplish that, you have to get onto another vibratory frequency. Let me tell you also why. When you move into other higher vibratory frequencies, lower frequencies that may have attached themselves, also known as shells, break off. And all of the diseases, this was always diagnosed, as I was saying before we were cut off earlier, all diseases were diagnosed as infirmities caused by spiritual forms, dismembered or imperfect spiritual forms, premature spiritual forms. So to vibrate into a frequency which teaches them, it doesn't actually, if some people say, oh, well, what are you doing? You're killing it or whatever, for those who know about this kind of knowledge. But the reality is that there is a teaching or a showing of perfection. And so this is also what allows an individual that is walking through a very low vibratory field to still be able to shine and hold their full spectrum light, because they understand the keys to how to keep the vehicle balanced no matter where they are. And of course, how this acts out in the reality is not allowing things to change your vibration. But once you've been overcome, because there's a before state to this and there's an after state. Once you've been overcome, or your armaments have been overrun, you have no choice but then to pull out something like the panuncia, meaning the energy that can cure all things. That energy, of course, is contained within. It's not a stone. It's not in the physical reality. And it's accessed in a vibratory frequency that is balanced. How to obtain that, from what I'm seeing now, is by understanding these bioenergetics. That's one status. The second status is the consumption. There's a heavy level of the consumption of what we're actually eating. The consumption. The heavy level of what we're taking into the body.
I'm busy.
Okay. So I guess there's some other people online. So I guess that's.
Sorry,
I
just had to tell something to my roommate. That's all.
Okay. But that's what I'm saying. So it's basically starting with that level. Like, I'm like this. I'll just tell you the truth. No matter where you're at and what prison you may think you're in, whether it's Earth or whatever the case may be, never give up on yourself. And as long as you don't give up on yourself, then the solution will come. I tell the world now the solution is here. There are several ways to cause activation. There was never just one way. And the reason was because people were going to get themselves into different things. And some weren't even going to be able to accept certain things a certain way. And so what happens is that what I can do with a couple magnets, I can also do with the Great Hermeticum. I can also do with possibly a Bible. I can also do with different ways. But which way is going to be pure energy? So that's also what the key for a lot of us is that we need to read the fine print sometime. When getting involved with other energies and talking about spiritual expansion, there are ancient ones here. They've already maxed themselves out. Like in the external reality, if we see what's really being practiced here is the rites of the Anunnaki. Their story is that they basically got super external. They went looking for planets in outer space, not inner space. Understand the difference. You check off in a flying shuttle with a bunch of gas blowing all off the back, talking about you're going to go find something. You're going to go find something that acts the same way you do. Everything is inside. And so now that's what I'm saying. The vibratory frequency picks up, shells break off. They say one side of the body lengthens itself back to the size that it's supposed to be because one side of your body will become smaller than the other when you start going through deep grieving and ailments. So you'll see when the magnetic poles are corrected, then that side grows back long and the field starts to perfect itself. Then you begin to bloom again because the original creators had integrity. They built the vehicle to be perpetual. It was just their thing. It had nothing to do with us later on and what we were going to do. It's like when you're the originator of something, your integrity is let's build this thing. And if you know the secret to it, you can put it all back together again. And so that's also where we play like this Humpty Dumpty on the dimension, trying to find the rest of the pieces to put ourselves back together again. But don't think you're here alone, though. Like, that's why I was saying we're all going to need each other, because each person, that's the other thing. Nobody is really coming forth and talking about what happens in the cabals at time. And it's leading thousands. If you could see the people who are following behind the Justin Biebers and individuals that you wouldn't even think that are involved in this stuff. But it's because nobody that's really been in there is coming back and saying, hey, stay away from that. And that actually becomes a part of their total emancipation. It's because that actually allows them to understand that, look, there are beings here already that have humanity's interest in full mind of expansion. But there's going to be nothing done that we don't do ourselves. Meaning that some people always ask, well, where are the benevolent beings going to help us? First of all, where would they get a vehicle to get into 3D if everyone here is already acting a fool? They can't go and just act a fool. They say even some did, but that's the reality. What I'm telling you, that it comes from us. There's no other place out there, but there's more than enough here. And that's what I think that's the most jubilant thing to really be able to say to anyone is that all diseases, all ailments, all infirmities can be cured with the knowledge that is here on this planet. The only thing you need is your will. And that's what we wrestle with every day, is something trying to break our will and take our frequencies. This somehow will strengthen us. Like we've been going through this a lot. We are more stronger in numbers when we're experiencing things. Many people have seen the resistance as a shield when they had to seek refuge from horrible, angry gods. Just to get a moment in space in their mind where they don't feel like they're in some type of conviction and there's some timeline that they already missed. You see what I mean? Like there's real things going on down here, but you can tell in yourself what's right. And that's what I was saying. The core of each human, you can see in many cases is good, but what we get into at times, what was a child supposed to do? So that's why many of us that that's why we work in these groups, because many of us that are more weathered or have spiritual connection. I believe that a lot of the melanin dominant people do have a spiritual connection with other beings on the timeline that some of these ghost beings that are running around fear. So there's this whole other little dynamic going on with when a person that carries a lot of energy can activate and then actually show individuals that they're supposed to be doing. But guess what? It works for us and against us. Because you see those same melanin dominant individuals run around the stage rapping about all sorts of stuff, and then everyone is following that. Yeah. So that's what I was saying about all energies. You can still see the same thing with the Caucasian race or whatever, that with all energies, they can either choose to use this fantastic ability, whether it's bravery or smeltering or cultures or whatever, they can choose to use it for our friend or for our foe. And now, it's our turn up for bat. Now we're going to see exactly what we can do with it. And I think the first place to start is with healing each other. And what I do right now is I give you the knowledge. Like I said, this bioenergetics, it took me 6 years to get to this. I've been over every mountain and molehill. I've been to every single planet in this solar system, even ones that you don't even know about. I've seen strange geometry and obtuse shapes, still holding the shield, meaning still being able to keep my mind from getting taken. Because that's what everyone that's really been in spirituality understands, that only thing that every experience that you're coming into is trying to do is say that it's the greatest experience. If you can just hold on for a moment and wait for the next experience, you'll see that it's really not. Every elevator you get off of, someone was like, I'm God here. Like, okay, that's the same thing the guy said. on the step on the elevator. It's like either you guys are in the same club or, I'm hitting the same dimensions, but you have to be like that with it. You can't let them take that flair away from you and make you like this robot where, yes, I will do it. That's what we have to break out of. But go ahead.
Well, so many religions, even pagan religions, seem to be based on the idea that our ancestors said God went this far, and this is how far they could go, and so now we're gonna only go that far.
Right. Well, and then the other thing is which ancestor? Like I get specific. Like who are we talking about? Are we talking about Orion again? Like that's what I'm saying. The last stop on the bus. All roads lead to Rome. And that's what you see in all the religious structure. Every time you get to the end, Nephilim's right there. He's like, what's up, man? I thought I saw you over there. He's like, yeah, we got this whole thing on lock. I keep telling you that. Now, remember, there's not too many people who can go that far. And this was what I believe why some people believe that, again, that the Caucasian race is like, that they're worse and they don't know how to that we have problems with them, etc. They're looking at it all wrong. Some of them have went into the darkness and have not found the light and actually have to have a melanin dominant individual go in and bring the light to them and pull them out, and along with the rest of the individuals that are in there. But why? Because they went through it before on the timeline, and that's the secret to Lower Egypt.
Does it work the other way around as well, though, Sevan?
It oscillates, because if you notice, it all oscillates around Egypt. It's the in and exit, exit. You come back, first of all, dark-skinned, melanin, black man. A couple aeons later, you're Santa Claus. Same thing, though. It's not. That's why when you look into the soul, you see the same thing. It's just weathered over time. Look at Dr. Parnassus' Imaginarium. It's just you see the over time, the one who is in this great struggle, who doesn't have a home, i.e. Cain, is weathered from dealing with nature and the elements, i.e. all the indigenous and the animals, and had to become the hunter to tame some of the beasts that were actually eating his children. And then his passion of, as a brother said, that anger, there's some type of understanding. You got to understand it, right? That's, you got to talk to the other guy. He doesn't seem to understand why someone would ransack and pillage their shores. But
to heal the planet and to heal the human family, I've always believed that was our responsibility. Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's a lot of responsibilities that we have. See, notice how even the Western world was set up to get rid of our responsibilities. All we did was, when we set up the Western world or United States, we just brought in a bunch of immigrants in order to do the work that we used to do, which was the farming. So there's this passing the buck, literally, thing that everyone is encouraged to do here. But I started noticing that this is probably why your world is upside down when you leave this world. It's like if you do too much of one thing in this world, then you just get the opposite in the next time. So if you go out of here balanced, you go into the next one balanced. It's trajectory. That's all you have to see it as. When you get ready to leave, you're going through the wormhole. Now, everything about that tells you need to be lined up right. That's why anytime you're dealing with spaceships, they don't take off until the coordinates and everything are set just perfectly. So if you die basically without your coordinates and everything set perfectly, you're going to spiral into another dimension of imperfection. It's even easier for me to see it from that point. And then again, coming into the world, you're favoring one hand, mainly the right. The world itself is on 23-degree tilt. People seem to be off balance, more masculated. But in the darkness, meaning the hidden or the left, there's a matriarch or a feminine. It operates on a reptilian hive mind or a moon-like nature. So there's, again, you can map all this stuff out. I wish somebody would write a book about it. If I could sit down long enough, I can write the entire book of what the story is. But can you write the story outside of the story? Like, because that's where your mind comes, because once you learn all this, and it's of course called the knowledge of the tree of good and evil, by the way. If you want to understand where this works in the occult, it's the people who wanted to know the truth and all of that. They needed to know this knowledge. So they had to go through all these experiences until they get to the conclusion of all the knowledge. So why we're now at this like almost point where we seem to be at the conclusion of knowledge, what is that conclusion telling us? All is self. If we see it any other kind of way, then we create this external being, and sometimes it can terrorize the hell out of us. Yeah, it becomes the Gregor of all of everything that we don't want to be seen, and that we really hate, and what we don't desire. And this was how it started. That's what I was telling you. In the Old Testament, you see that even that there's a ritual taking place where the people were to place the sins on the horns of the goat and let it off into the forest. But notice what's being said. This means that this goat is supposed to be bearing the sins of the people. This is no different than Christianity, where obviously the goat God again. He's to bear everyone's sins, Jesus of the world, and then boom again. Now, then you go into another religion. Now it's the Kaaba, it's a cube. Now it's going to bear the sins of everyone if they march around it 7 times, and then everything is going to be absolved. But our sins are making it blacker. It's the same thing, that we're feeding our responsibility to something else. And we're feeding our responsibilities not when they're solved, but when they're at their worst state. And that's when you get the root to a prison religion, meaning a religion or something that you start to believe in when you're in prison in the most desperate moment. Not when you have your head clear, you've ate some grapes, everything's cool, and you say, bring it to me. let me dissect then. No, they're trying to bring it to you right when something's breathing down your throat and you're facing what you think is the end of your life. Hey, would you give your life over? You see what I mean? Yeah. You see, like they're playing this game with everyone. And that's why I had to get so far beyond that.
I've experienced that my whole life.
Yeah. I mean, I know, sister. I know exactly where you're at. I mean, to tell you the truth, that's why it's the end of it. Like that's what I keep saying with this. Like it's nobody can really grasp it unless they've been through it. But once you've been through it, then you're like, okay, I know what it's the end of. But the sleepers won't really know what it's the end of until they awake and start seeing that go ahead.
One of the hardest things for me to realize is that it's not just Christian God that does that. Like pagan gods do it too. Like oh no, I've messed up my life. And then someone shows up like, hey, here's the pagan god. He'll solve everything. And I learned the hard way that that's never the case.
Yeah, I mean, because it's still the same entities rolled into another system. And in fact, that is really what came to this world, is the exact same group of beings, but still creating different belief systems and back there doing the controlling. And again, just as if you follow Dan Winter's work, he talks about what is it really back there, and it's just that these version of the ancestors are very vampiric. And they don't have any other way to continue their idea of themselves except for attaching and latching a hold to other individuals. And I think you see things like that in the bottom of the sea. And so if we actually want to see if it's actually going on in our planet, the ocean will show us that there's many other life forms that we have yet to really, with large brains, by the way, that we've yet to really encounter. We just have to know, okay, I've seen enough of the bottom of the ocean floor to know what direction is going to get me where I need to go. And I think that lesson in itself, which is like fire, is very painful but very valuable, and teaches a person very fast and in a way that they don't have to learn that same lesson again. And to me in life, that may be in certain cases the only thing that allowed me to put some of the things behind me that I've experienced in this realm. But realistically, the other thing is to be active at all times at making sure people get the wholeness, but in another way. Like as far as I could go into talking to them about the Airabot and how this whole thing is configured on a Sephiroth of Adam Cadman, and the dog god is running around acting like he doesn't have, that he's not trained. But these days that doesn't make any sense. And I think 2,000 years ago that was kind of like how everyone talked. Now they're talking about the magnetic field that is not spiraling properly, and thus the negative pole is duplicated itself. So you need to put a positive and a negative pole in the entry and the exit, and this will allow you to oscillate outside of your normal frequency range, which will cause most of the negative entities to drop off, and then you'll get a clear mind and you can see exactly what you need to do next. And I think that now you ask yourself, which one was better? because they're actually the same thing. This is what you have to see, that in each time that we've cranked this old machine up and started running Earth again, 1.0, 1.2, it was still the same story played in the background. It was just the characters were painted up different. And so that's what I see throughout history is that, you know, our same situation, and that's why I've been able to nip it in the bud. It's what we're doing and mainly what you take in, because before you take anything in, if for anything intrudes on you, that's the actual point right there. And so, like, I watch what I put in all my holes, my mouth, my nose, my ears. Those are entry points. People talking to you, you smelling things, and then someone putting their tongue in your mouth or whatever. What I'm saying is that you guard your gates. And as they raise up your gates, put your guards up and let them be there. And again, don't fail to utilize the crystal kingdom if necessary. That's the other thing. The crystals, in many cases, hold the actual frequencies. Like, I know that also crystals kind of get tied into the Wiccan thing at times too, especially when people are putting in negative intention into crystals. We have to just see it for what it is. They're magnetic buffers. So when you put them on the corresponding color of the chakra, it makes the wheel kick up so that it can throw off some of the infection and some of the bacteria, etc., that's holding it back astro-hygienically. And so that gets things back on the road. And so that's what's up. Hopefully everyone got as much as they can out of the conversation. I know there was a couple interruptions, but all in all, I think that we did very well. Of course, I'll be coming forward again and talking about some stuff that's a lot more put together and organized. I'm always just expanding so much into new stuff. It's no time to even go back over the stuff that was like a week or 2 weeks ago. Like, we made the entire run this year and a half or 2 years. What I've seen is a full occultation from the time that we began till all where I was just basically dealing with the reptile then, and just, you know, trying to flush out his identity and the reality all the way up until the point where all is self. And I think that that's pretty much the entire route that a person would be running here on the planet, however long it would take them. And so now what we want to do is just get people from that beginning point, wherever the beginning is to them, right to the conclusion of this. And again, it's vibratory frequency.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Thank you very much, Sevan.
Thank you.
I know that you've got another show in an hour or so. Is that right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's about an hour and a half. Hour and 10 minutes.
Do you want to give everyone details for that show?
Actually,
so they can tune in.
Actually, they can go and visit the site. I didn't write the link down because I had to put it on a tiny URL because it was kind of long. So if you go to the site, you actually see the flyer for this show, and it was a double header. So I put in the information for the other show right in.
That's right. With
that flyer. And so, yeah, they can check me out in about, I guess, 2 hours. Yeah, it's about 2 hours and 10 minutes. And I'll be on again. I'll refresh myself, and then I got to get a little bit more into exactly how to unpin the lower world or the inorganic kingdom set up by Yaldabaoth. But that's, you know, another story.
Okay, thank you very much for all you callers, and thank you, Sevan.
Thank you very much
once
Sevan.
again. As Rosalind said, the next time you come on, if you could have a question and answer,
I think it will definitely just have to be a session
for that in itself, isn't it?
Yeah, because there's lots of callers out there who want to.
And we apologise for all those who couldn't call in for obvious reasons. You know, Sevan's got a lot of knowledge which is shared with us anyway, and I'm sure some of the questions have been answered by Sevan.
Yeah, give thanks to
much callers, and this is the Innervibe show on Sunday evening on Essence Radio. We have Mr. Lee coming on shortly, so please tune in.
Yeah,
keep tuned in, I should say.
Yeah, stay tuned
for some nice reggae.
Yeah.
But we're going to leave you with a couple of tunes before we go, and if Sevan, you want to say the last words before?
Actually, just wholeness to everyone, and thanks for participating, and to be that, you know, to be what everyone expects. That's
Thank you,
that's the main thing.
Yeah, thanks for asking those difficult questions, bro.
Right.
Okay, thank you, family. Thank you. Hotep.